My name is Sinead Hennessy and I work for Fáilte Ireland's Food Tourism Department. And before I hand you over to Fiona Ash, who's going to be facilitating or delivering the briefing this morning, I want to take a couple of minutes just to put a little bit of context around the session and maybe introduce you to the background surrounding Ireland's food story and what we're doing in food tourism. We've been working on our current vision since 2014, so every single activity that we partake in Food Tourism Unit leads into the aim that Ireland will be recognised for memorable food experiences which evoke a unique sense of place, culture and hospitality. To give you an idea as to the food consumer landscape or the segment breakdown of who we're talking about, I suppose in a food sense, 10% of our visitors we would consider to be accidental culinary tourists. Some of you have seen this chart before, but accidental culinary tourists, they really see food as fuel and sustenance, and they're not really motivated by food. The next 10% are our food enthusiasts, or as we like to call them, our foodies. These guys will travel to a place specifically for the food experience. So food motivates them in their decision-making process as to where to go. And then we have the largest piece of the pie. 80% of our visitors are what we would call food positive. So whilst they may not be motivated to travel to a specific destination for the food experience they have whilst they're in a destination has a significant impact on their overall satisfaction levels while they're here. Our visitors want to experience Irish food, but not in a traditional sense. They're not looking for traditional dishes, but they want to experience food that gives them a sense of the place that they're in, or as we like to call them in Fáilte Ireland, these immersive food experiences. Dublin and indeed Ireland has gone through a food revolution in the past couple of years. I mean, you only need to look at the amount of new food enterprises opening on a weekly and a daily basis in Dublin to know that the modern take on Irish cuisine and the new wave of inspired chefs and entrepreneurs, it's really, really placing Dublin well on a global food platform. However, there is a challenge in that there's a long-held but unflattering perception globally around Irish food. And it's amazing to see the amount of visitors that come back to us and say, you know, I was really, really surprised by the food that I experienced in Ireland, which again kind of tells us a little bit about where the expectation was before they came here. So I suppose that is our aim, is to change the perception around Irish food. So the most effective way to do this is to make sure that ourselves in Fáilte Ireland, our destination marketers, Tourism Ireland and businesses are marketing and selling their food in a way that really, really resonates with visitors. Every country in the world with a tourism offering is now using food as a way to stand out amongst a crowded marketplace. And we need to adopt that approach. So how do we do that? How do we change the perception? So with that in mind, in 2014, we set about developing Ireland's food story. So in order for us to do this, we had to look at we went through a period of consultation. So we looked at what the industry was saying about Irish food, what it was all about. We looked at what we were saying in Fáilte Ireland about the food experience offering in Ireland. We looked at what the media was saying, international and domestic, and we looked at what Tourism Ireland was saying. And we went through a process of consolidating all of this data down into one cohesive and direct message around Irish food. After that, once we had that done, we went about developing a toolkit for trade to adopt this messaging and in order for the trade to use it in through their own channels. So far this year, we have over 300 tourism and food businesses have adopted their own version of Ireland's food story. And by using a similar language and delivering a consistent message, it has an amplifying effect around Irish food in Ireland. And it is the perception around Irish food is beginning to change as a result of that.
Ireland's long been...
Sorry, this is the big one. This is Ireland's food story. So I'm going to show you a video before I pass you over to Fiona, and she's going to take the session from there. But I'll link in at the very end to just take you through some of the links as part of the toolkit that we're offering to Dublin businesses for Dublin's food story. So this is Ireland's food story. Thank you very much.
Ireland's long been recognised for its beautiful landscapes, coastlines and the warmth of its people. Now visitors are coming for its food and drink too. For Ireland has a natural, honest approach to food. Easy-going and warm, rooted in tradition, yet very 21st century. With its mild climate, clean seas, fertile soil and of course the rain, Ireland produces some of the best raw ingredients in the world. On this small island, local rules. You'll eat seafood straight off the boat, dairy from local pastures, beef, lamb and pork raised within a few miles, and greens picked that same day. You can really taste the place. You'll find dishes expertly prepared and served simply and fresh as can be. But in Ireland, good food is just the start. This is a place where you can shake the hand that feeds you too. Visit producers, follow food trails, take part in food festivals, learn traditional skills, forage and fish, or simply join in the chat at the bakery, on the quayside, or at the bar. For Ireland believes in small, it believes in local, and it believes in personal. And it's the people, the generations of farmers and fishermen, the artisan producers, the new wave of inspired chefs and the warm, welcoming hosts that turn this great natural larder into experiences you will always remember.
So plenty of inspiration for you there. Good morning, my name is Fiona Ash and I may have met some of you before. You're all very welcome, whether I've met you before or not. And today we're just going to talk about how you can create content that feeds into the food story, that enhances the image of Ireland's food and Dublin's food and also your own businesses. So today what we're going to talk about is food and social media. A match made in heaven. I'll give you some ideas about what works on different platforms. I'll give you some resources to help promote your food story. I'll tell you how to make your food story stand out. And then finally, I'll give you some tools that you can use to make your content really sizzle. So first of all, have a look at this image and tell me, the one on the left where they're eating chips, do these people look like they are risk takers in terms of food? No, they kind of like their own, what they know. Is presentation important to them? No, not at all. Is where they eat, the experience of where they eat, is that important to them? No. What about the one on the left? Is presentation important to somebody who eats this kind of food? Yeah, very much so. Do they seem like the kind of people who might try new foods? Okay, yeah. And is where they eat, the experience of where they eat, is that important? Yeah. So you can see how for two different couples, where the eating experience is quite different, and therefore their emotional needs are different. So I'm going to talk a bit about feeding into people's emotional needs. When you put out content, it's about trying to evoke the emotions that will incentivize people to try your food. So it's not about just the food itself. It's about the experience of being outdoors, being in the fresh air, having a lovely picnic, the connection with your family, and maybe a nice touch like a bottle of champagne. So it's about the entire experience evoking the emotion, not just the food. Connection is another big thing in terms of evoking emotion. So the connection between the food producer and the consumer is terribly important. If they get to know you and start to like you, then chances are they're going to trust you more, especially in terms of where the food comes from. And that's important to a lot of consumers. So it's very important to build a connection with the people who consume your products. And in content, it's very important to highlight how people will feel. So post pictures of people enjoying your food. Everyone's, including consumers, are posting pictures of food these days. So it's kind of not enough to just post pictures of the food itself. But if you show somebody enjoying your food, the chances are that other people will say, oh, I might enjoy that too. And it'll also create a desire in them to experience that. So let's talk about social media. So let's talk about examples from a website, first of all, before we go on to social media. It's very important to add personality to your website. So this is, the personality that you have within your business, it's important to try and get that across on your website. So this is an example from Dog Hungry Bears. So this is Barry, he's Breezy Bear, and he's currently on a strict seafood diet, which means that when he sees food, he eats it. And this is Enda, and rumour has it he once ate an entire jar of Ballymilly relish with a spoon in one sitting. And Connor's impressive collection of sombreros has raised questions, is he in fact Mexican? So do you feel like you know a little bit about these guys? Do they sound like kind of fun people to hang out with? Yeah, so they've managed to get their personalities across on the website, and it's important to try and do that in your businesses, not just about the food. Another great way to create content is to feature your suppliers. For example, this is Chapter 1 Restaurant, and there's a rolling gallery of images of suppliers on the website, and it shows not just who the supplier is, but what they bring to the restaurant. So in this case, it's saffron. This person is either specialising in saffron or bringing saffron dishes to the restaurant. And it's a very, very captivating image as well. So that's a great idea for content. This is a B&B, and they use visuals very, very powerfully to hook you in. They show pictures of the food, and they then have a good headline, and then one or two very succinct but very captivating lines which tell you why you should eat it. Wholesome food from tunnel to table, that's what we guarantee. The vegetables you'd eat here are grown in our own vegetable tunnels using organic processes. So a nice piece of content. Great to have a very short phrase that people can remember, because people will take away only about 10 to 20% of what they read. But if you give them a very, very succinct phrase that they can remember and repeat to their friends and maybe even share on social media, then you've got a little bit of word of mouth going. So Facebook, let's just take a look at some examples from Facebook. This is a fantastic cover picture. And don't forget, your cover picture is a very, very important marketing opportunity. So post a fab cover picture, a fork, a glass, a drop of magic. Fantastic line. Again, make sure that you use everything, whether it's text and images, use every space that you have. So a lovely line that sucks people in, plus a captivating and delicious looking image there, which makes people want to experience that. You can also surprise people and hopefully educate by adding valuable content. So the surprise in this is sandwiches are usually made with bread, but in this case they're made with apples. So the image itself is quite eye-catching. It's very hard to make your content stand out among all of the other content that people are putting out there. Therefore, if you tap into trends, look at what people are talking about and tap into those things, there's a much greater chance of your content being found. And you can use hashtags, for example, as a way of getting that found. So this was by Oreo, who do fantastic content, and it was for Star Trek Day. So look around, see what people are talking about in Ireland and globally, and see if you can come up with content that taps into that. And then simple humour works. Can you read this down the back? Great little piece of content, simple joke, and honestly, most of the great content comes from one simple idea. So, use your pictures and your captions to create fantastic humour. So Instagram is more about kind of indie creative images. So this is a super image which says, I love Ben & Jerry's, using the tools that you would use to eat Ben & Jerry's. Therefore, it's a very clever piece of content. And this was actually created by a fan. This was crowdsourced. And they invite people to upload pictures on a Friday, and they call it Fan Photo Friday. So a fan created this, and then Ben & Jerry's retweeted it and reshared it. So great piece of content. Another thing is to post eye-catching images. So while a lot of the time it's not going to be enough to post images of food by itself, then there are times when something really is artistic enough that it might just fly by itself. Now, this is a particularly artistic image. So you would get away with posting that on its own. As it happens, there was a story with it. Sometimes the text with an image can tell you the story and contribute to the story. So this is the story. It might be rainy and grey outside, but sea containers are lighting it up. So use the opportunity for text, for captions, for video, for images to tell your story. Anything else that you can add to help enhance your content. And this is another example of showing people enjoying food. So the food in itself is quite artistic, but when you see somebody enjoying it, then it becomes more appealing. And it can also start conversations. And what you really want is for people to share, but you also want people to leave comments, because that gets a conversation going around your content. So this was what this was originally posted with this picture, and it's just a description of what they're eating and where they're eating. The comments pretty much indicated that they thought it was too small a portion. But those were expressed in a humorous way, so it's a nice humorous conversation. You're not going to necessarily agree with absolutely every comment that people are posting, but it's really good to get the conversations going around your content. Okay, this was deemed to be the perfect Pinterest image in a survey that took place over a year. You can see that there's a minimal background. It uses multiple colours. There's shades of red and orange included. Moderate light and colour, which means that it's not oversaturated or desaturated, and it's not overexposed or underexposed. It's moderate light and colour. And it's portrait style, which works best on Pinterest. So they're just some tips if you are creating images for Pinterest. Collages tend to work very, very well on Pinterest as well. And you can see that this one is particularly vibrant. The colours are very saturated, they're very strong colours. The images are very strong. And the text is minimal. So on images, you can add captions, but don't overdo it with the text. So that's a striking piece of content that would most likely get shared. And then quotes also get shared a lot. And you don't have to create them all yourself. This is a lovely one. The secret ingredient is 1 heaping teaspoon of love. Taps into the food business, but it's generating emotion as well, positive emotion. And like I say, there's plenty of these online, so therefore you can find them and share them. You don't have to create them yourself if you don't have the time. And this is one of my favorites. Fantastic. This is celebrating the 6th annual Cabernet Day and using the hashtag Cabernet Day, but a fabulous piece of content. Again, a simple idea. Like I said, simple ideas are the best, the funniest, the most engaging, the most shared. So have fun with your content. So there are a few tips on social media to get you going. There are resources out there to help promote your food better, and Fáilte Ireland are the best in the world are producing these. So this is Dublin's Food Story Toolkit, which Sinead will take you through online a little bit later. What I'm going to do is tell you what the 6 themes are and just give you an example of 2. You can see that there's a word cloud at the side here of the theme. And what I have done is I've picked 2 phrases from each of the themes, and I'm going to give you examples of content that would work for those. So one of them for the simple and fresh theme would be best raw ingredients, and you can see that that is a very strong image, which shows that these are these look very fresh, straight from the ground, and again, beautiful saturated colours. This is a lovely picture as well. Fresh as can be. Little girl she may not have picked them herself, but you can see that they're straight out of the ground. The second theme is a strong sense of place. So what I picked from here was natural larder. So just south of Dublin, we have Glendalough, and you can see that that image tells you that there's a cafe there you can eat, but it looks like they grow the food there. So it feels like a natural larder. And then a sense of place, again, show happy couple or happy people enjoying the food, enjoying the coffee break. If the area is not immediately recognizable. Like, say, Trinity College would be very recognizable if it was in the background. But if it's not, you can find places with the words in the background, as you can see Dublin here, to illustrate where the place is. But having a strong sense of place within your content is terribly important. So theme 3 is local rules. And the ones I picked from this are within a few miles. You're trying to promote the fact that your content, your produce is all available and freshly grown within a few miles. And this is a fantastic image which shows the potatoes being dug. And then Artisan Producers, another key element of this. And there are lots and lots of images, both within Ireland's content pool, and also if you go to markets yourself, you probably have loads of images of Artisan Producers. But again, promoting the fact that we have an artisan culture here, and there's plenty of unique artisan produce available for tourists. So theme 4 is warm people, and this is a critical thing, because like I said close to the beginning, it's about connecting with the producer of the food. Shake the hand that feeds you. I like this one. Tourists like to talk to the people who create the food. Who's the fisherman? Who dug the potatoes? Who created the produce? And find out how organic it is and how fresh it is and what the passion behind it is too. And then I love this image, warm and welcoming. This tells the story. You immediately get the emotion of the image, and posting stuff like this, again, gives Dublin a very good name in terms of its food story. So theme 5 is new news, and this is where we really tap into the inspired chefs, the changing of Dublin's food image to say that we are very cosmopolitan, we are very 21st century. So images like this show how incredible the food is here, how elaborate it can be, how cosmopolitan it can be, and you can include a chef in the background to show a little bit of personality behind the food also. These are also examples from the Chapter 1 website, and you can see that this is not what people would expect as traditional Irish food. You don't see any Irish stew here. But this is the kind of food that tourists can get in Ireland. So this is how we are trying to reinvent the image of Irish food and Dublin food. And theme 6 is experiences that make memories. And the things that we remember in life are moments that made an impact on us. So we try and create those for people who come here. This captures a moment in time, tasting an oyster at the Galway Oyster Festival. And you can see both the expression of the person tasting the oyster and the person with her both tell their own story. City Bistro is another key one in this particular theme. And these are images which show the bistro culture that we have in Dublin that is on offer to tourists and is a very attractive reason for coming here. And one thing people might not associate with Dublin is they may not know that we have beer gardens, especially with the weather we get. But on a good summer evening, you can have a dinner in a beer garden, and it can be a very special experience that people will remember. So it's promoting those unique experiences that people don't expect here. And you can use the toolkit that's on the Fáilte Ireland website to create your story. So these are examples that are examples of how you can take that content and how you can turn it into content for yourself that you put out on social media. So Lily's running a cafe in Dublin. Tourists and locals say her breakfasts are to die for. So she decides to write a page about her breakfast for her website, and she goes to the toolkit on the Fáilte Ireland website for inspiration. So this is what she gets. This is what she creates from the images and from the suggested text. She adapts it to her own needs. So here at Lily's, we use the freshest of local produce for our breakfast. You get eggs laid that morning by our own yard hens. That's why the yolks are so yellow. And that's a little bit of personality there. It's like she's talking to you. Dairy made from the green fields surrounding Dublin. That's why the butter is so creamy. And pork raised and smoked within a few miles. That's why the bacon's so tender. So you've actually got poetic structure there with her 3 that's why lines. And quality ingredients simply served. It's as if you can really taste the place. And coupled with a nice image. So you can see how she has taken a little bit of inspiration from the toolkit, created her own content, and it's very captivating content there. This is an example from a restaurant. So Ben and Gemma are tweeting for the owner Jeff, who's a bit of a Luddite when it comes to social media. Any Luddites in the room here? Of course not. Of course not. But he asked them to use the toolkit to flavour their tweeting. So they're tweeting about the restaurant suppliers, and they use the hashtag taste the place. So you can either tap into existing hashtags, or you can create your own if you want to establish yourself. So again, strong image to support the text. We believe in local, fresh eggs from Malloy's farm, 2 miles door to door, hashtag taste the place. The example we showed, shake the hands that feeds you. This is one of our themes. Here Jill Jones brings us to her delish forage hedgerow jam, hashtag taste the place. And local rules. Harry have opened a smokehouse just down the road from us. That's Friday's lunch special, sorted, taste the place. So again, taking content, using the themes and using the word clouds to create content. And our final example is a phrase for a menu. So Jim and Brendan own a small bistro in a Dublin coastal town where the fish is as fresh as it can be. They want a phrase or two to add to their menu, and they go looking to the toolkit for inspiration. And this is what they come up with. So again, nice image. Did you know that Ireland has some of the best raw ingredients in the world? At Seabreeze, you'll find the best ingredients, expertly prepared, and then served simply and as fresh as they can be. So this absolutely fits in with the six themes, and a nice piece of very easy to read, very compelling content. So how do you make your food message stand out? Because there's an awful lot of people posting content. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of competition. So first of all, you've got to have a strong headline. A headline could captivate. So an Italian, an American, and an Austrian walked into our kitchen. Who wants to know the rest of that story? Nobody? I'll take that as a yes. You know, when you start telling a story, you captivate people, you get them into the story, and they want to know what happens next. That's what great storytelling is. So a great headline brings them into the story, and then they then might read your blog post or your Facebook post or something on your website. If you're taking images and you don't want to edit them using one of the tools that I'm going to show you later, there are certain things you can do when you're taking the picture that will enhance it, make it more compelling, make it more captivating. So focus is one of the things that you can use. Generally, we're drawn to see people in images, but if you want people to see the food here instead of the man, you can put the food in focus and put the man out of focus, because we tend not to see what's out of focus in an image. You can, if you didn't change the focus when you were taking the image, you can use one of the tools that we'll give you later to change the focus afterwards. You can also use a natural filter. So that would be a nice image even without the glass, but it wouldn't necessarily stand out against everyone else who's taken this image of the church and the bay. So if you put this glass in front of it, it creates a natural filter, creates a bit of curvature, and it makes the image much more unique and interesting. And show personality. We talked about personality on website a little while ago. This again shows the personality of this place. Do these people look like fun people to hang out with? Yes. Does it look like a nice place to go? Yeah, I'd like to go there. I'd like to hang out with them and have a coffee and experience that place. And so the image is what convinces me to go there. So look for images that show your personality, as well as the text that I showed you earlier. Text and images can both show personality. Video is also a very powerful way to convey ideas, to create a story world. And we'll just have a quick look at a short one here for inspiration. Okay, so did you get a feel for the story world? What do you think the story world is? Where do you think it's happening?
New York.
Yeah, New York. Where in New York? Yeah, it's probably a cocktail bar. It's probably a really cool, cosmopolitan, funky cocktail bar. It's got that feel about it. How important was the music in creating that atmosphere? It was terribly important, wasn't it? So with this, you can see this, the concept is just making the drink, but the story is told in a way that it's edited to tell the story. So it's sped up, it's jump cut, and the music tells you what the story world is. So it's the editing that really plays a part in that. So sometimes it's going to be the content you come up with, and then other times you can use editing techniques to tell the story. So you can also use a metaphor. This is another storytelling technique that you can use to enhance your content. So have a look at this and see if you can decipher what the metaphor is. Okay, so what do you think the metaphor is? Any guesses? Too early in the morning. Yeah. and I thought you'd be used to early mornings more so than I would. The metaphor is food as art. So you can see that it's presented in a tremendously artistic way, and the chefs take great pride in how they present their food. So you can use a metaphor like that. A metaphor is a very effective way of telling a story, and people see one thing through the symbol of another thing. So just another storytelling technique to bear in mind. So all of the ones that I've given you today, they can be used in combination with each other, or you can just take one of them and use one of them in your content. And finally, I just want to give you some tools to make your content sizzle. So these are image editing tools that you could use. So PicMonkey is an online editing tool. So you just go online, go to picmonkey.com, and without even logging in, you can edit images. Now, most of it is free, but there are some premier functions within it. And there's also Camera Plus, which is an iOS and Apple smartphone editing tool, which is really good. You can add filters and frames and change the look of an image. The closest equivalent I could find on Android was Camera Zoom FX, but I think the Android phones have pretty good photo editing already on them in the camera part, so you might try that as well. And then if you wanted to go a little bit further, you could try Canva, which is a design tool, and that designs things like social media updates, posters, and anything you want to design. You can just create it, output it as a JPEG, and then upload it. So it gives you a lot of leeway to design something a little bit original, put your logo on something, brand it a bit better. So, and again, I think that's mostly free. There are some images you have to pay $1 for, but it is mostly free. And this is the kind of thing that you could do with PicMonkey. So for example, if you had the photo on the left as your starting point, you can make it stylistic by taking out the color. You can leave the color in one area of the image, the area that you want people to see. You can add a caption. You could add a hashtag Love Dublin or Dublin's food story. And I don't know if you can see it clearly, but there's a frame, a black frame around that as well. And again, that just adds to the artistic nature. So this one is more likely to stand out online against all the other content. And that's fairly easy to do through PicMonkey. So have fun making your content sizzle. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Fiona. That was a whistle-stop tour there. So I suppose, just to finish, I want to direct you to where you can go to gather your own resources and inspirations for your own food story, for your own business. faultireland.ie/Dublin contains the toolkit. Within the toolkit, you have particular tabs. So there's a themes tab, which Fiona touched on earlier. So you can look at and access the word content under those themes. So for the story, you'll find that there's a story in a sentence, a story in a paragraph, plus you have the 300-word content story that was used in the video that I just showed earlier. Pull elements of those out and use them for your word content. As well as that, and some of you may be aware of this already and using it already, you have full access to Ireland's content pool. And we've sectioned it off so that the images that relate to Ireland's food story are in a particular section. So there's loads of images that you can access in there. The inspiration tab is, I suppose, my favorite tab. I think it's fantastic to go in there. Once you're in there, and I'll just show you. All right. Sorry. Once you're in there, under the specific themes, so for example, using a sense of place, we have actual examples of Dublin businesses that we consider to be doing it very, very well. So using the food story, integrating it into their concept and their food ethos and delivering it that way. It's a very, very interesting tab to go in and gain inspiration from. So again, that's www.falcherireland.ie/Dublin for that. There's loads in it. You can, I suppose, access the full food story, break it down to pieces of content and integrate it into what you're doing already, which is very useful.